Hello, and welcome to Beating Heart Disease. My name is Kevin Wells, and I am a heart disease survivor. And today we're going to be talking about the 3 things that you can do to prevent heart disease, to prevent coronary artery disease, to prevent bypasses, to prevent stents, prevent these things from happening to your children and your grandchildren. So what's the first thing that you can do to prevent heart disease? First thing you can do to prevent heart disease is prevent scurvy. A lot of people haven't heard that word in medical circles in quite a while, a couple hundred years to be exact. But when people were traveling around on ships, it was a major problem. They didn't have the vitamin C on the ship, so they would get full-blown scurvy, develop cracks all over their bodies, they would bleed out, and they would die. What's happening with Western humans, modern Western humans, is they are developing a microscurvy. And basically it causes small little cracks in your arteries that I'll explain why that's a problem here in just a little bit. So scurvy is number 1. Number 2 is you want to prevent inflammation. So when you get these little cracks in your arteries, and let's say this represents the crack, when you get inflammation in your body, in your arteries, well, that crack now is this wide. So it's a lot easier for cholesterol to lodge in there than when it's this big. So you don't want any cracks at all, but when it's inflamed, it's even easier for the cholesterol to get in there. So that's number 2. Number 3 is triglycerides. Triglycerides are sugars, refined sugars, saturated fats, those type of things that are triglycerides, and I'll explain why those are bad for your system. Let's go into more of why scurvy is bad for you and how you can prevent it. Well, how can you prevent scurvy? Well, everybody knows, well, you eat vitamin C, right? You eat fruits and vegetables that have vitamin C. There was a study done on why animals don't have heart disease, but primates and humans do. And what they found was animals actually synthesize their own vitamin C. They don't have to get it from external sources like animals and humans and primates. The other thing is that they discovered is that the vitamin C actually attaches to bad cholesterol and keeps it from sticking together. So that's another benefit of vitamin C. But they also found that humans do not store vitamin C. So we have to get vitamin C every 2 or 3 hours, or we get depleted of vitamin C. So one way you can prevent the scurvy is from eating one of these, like one of these little peppers like this, bite-sized peppers, has about 80% of the vitamin C you need during a day. So you can carry this around, peel off a couple of slices, eat those every couple hours, you're good to go. Every 2 to 3 hours every day while you're awake. You don't have to get up when you're sleeping to eat it. I mean, preferably you would, but you don't. I mean, who's going to do that? Anyway, but that's the way to prevent the scurvy. So, and basically, if you prevent scurvy, prevent the the cracks that we were talking about from getting into your system. So, so that's the scurvy. Now you say, well, hey, I've got vitamin C supplements, so it's got to be as good as this. It's going to be easier to take this, especially this is a time-released vitamin C. And this is what I started out with, and I thought, well, I'm good to go. I got my vitamin C. Well, after doing research on vitamin C, I found out this is really not really what I'm needing. This is ascorbic acid. It is technically vitamin C. However, it is not the complete vitamin C complex. Vitamin C is, when you eat it in a whole food, you get the whole complex of vitamin C. There's other vitamins in there. There's enzymes, and there's other real healthy things when you eat natural vitamin C. Vitamin C is actually kind of the shell of the whole vitamin C complex. So you really want to get it from natural sources. It's a lot easier to take this. Now, if you're eating like Tang and something, or drinking Tang or something like that, and it says, oh, it's fortified with vitamin C. This is what it's fortified with, and it's not the same as the vitamin C that you would get in an actual orange. So just remember that. This is better for you than this. This will prevent scurvy technically, but this is what you really need to be getting to really benefit your artery. So anyway, so that's the scurvy. So the number 2 thing is inflammation. So how do we prevent inflammation? Well, one easy way is Olive oil. Olive oil is an anti-inflammatory. Not just any olive oil. You want to get first cold pressed olive oil. You want it to be extra virgin. This is unfiltered, which it has quite a bit of bite to it, so it's not for everyone. But I really like it. I put it on my cereal. I put it on my bread, my sandwiches. I put it on my sushi if I have sushi. Every meal pretty much gets a drizzle of olive oil. You want to shoot for 2 cups a week, which is what the average Italian eats. Basically, the thinking is, okay, if you have a meal, like the Italians eat cheeses and they eat pastas and they eat meats, a lot of inflammatory foods, but they have low incidence of heart disease. One reason is because they're countering it with an anti-inflammatory. Olive oil. They eat a lot of olive oil. They also drink a lot of red wine, and they have it with a meal. So 2 anti-inflammatories to counter inflammatory foods before the inflammation ever happens. So that's one reason. So, and what happens is, when you get the cracks from the scurvy, okay, you got the little cholesterol boat. This is a little LDL. This is what they measure when they take your lipid panel when you go in for a blood test. This is LDL. This is a little boat that carries cholesterol around. These are little cholesterols here, and this is triglycerides here. And what happens when you get a crack in your artery? Well, when these little guys try to lodge in there because they can fit. They can fit in there. So there's also something that's called, there's the small particle LDL, and there's the large particle LDL. Okay. They don't test for this unless you actually pay extra for it. You don't want the small particle LDL because it's pretty self-explanatory. The small one can fit in there. The big one can't. So that's why the big one's less dangerous for you than the small one. But now let's say, okay, you eat a nasty burger and it's, had all kinds of grease and all kinds of nasty stuff. Now your artery's inflamed to that. A lot easier for that cholesterol to get in there when it's that wide, right? So that's why you want to prevent inflammation. You had a crack that was this big. Now you got a crack that's that big, and it's easy for this little guy to get in there. Okay, so that's why you want to prevent the inflammation. Olive oil on every meal. Wine. I don't drink wine with my meals, but I'm not saying you should be an alcoholic or anything like that. I'm not even a doctor, so take my advice with a grain of salt. Do your own research. So anyway, so we're getting to the third thing that you can do, and that's inflammation. Triglycerides. Third thing is triglycerides. Like I mentioned in the little LDL boat here, every LDL boat has little cholesterols in it. It has triglycerides. It has other things in it too, but these are the 2 bad things for like heart disease. So the triglycerides are refined sugars, saturated fats, that kind of stuff. The deal is the boat travels around in your system. Once it's full, it leaves the port, and it travels around your system looking for places that can fix. You need cholesterol. It's actually beneficial most of the time. It's not beneficial when it starts collecting in your heart arteries. Anyway, so if you can lower your triglycerides, the boat doesn't have it's not completely full, so it's not going to leave port until it's full. So you have less of these boats floating around when you can lower your triglycerides. So when you have these little triglycerides, a lot of them floating around, you have more boats. More boats. If you have cracks, okay, then they're going to try and fill up these cracks because you have a lot of these little boats floating around, and there's a crack, so let's fill it up. And if it's a wide crack from inflammation, even worse. So now we'll talk about the 2 camps when it comes to heart disease survivors. From my research, people who are trying to prevent heart disease, there's 2 camps. There's like the vegan camp, where like you have to go all vegetable, all fruit. And there's the all meat camp, just grass-fed beef, that kind of stuff. Both camps seem to do really well in recovery when it comes to heart disease. And I think I figured out why through research, watching doctors, videos and research of studies and that kind of stuff. Now the vegans, they're getting a lot of vitamin C, so they're preventing the cracks. For one, they also don't have a lot of inflammation because these type of foods are not very inflammatory. They're probably eating olive oil too, to spice things up a little bit. So anti-inflammatory, already probably anti-inflammatory, preventing scurvy, preventing the cracks. That's why they do well. Now the meat eating side, they're preventing the triglycerides because they're not getting a whole lot of sugars. So they don't have a whole lot of these little boats floating around. They have less than most people. If you have a lot of triglycerides in your system, you got a lot of these boats floating around. Also, well, the meat eaters may have cracks because they're not getting probably the vitamin C that they need, but they don't have a whole lot of boats floating around to fill up the cracks. So less of the boats, less blockages. So that's my theory and why both camps, do really well in recovery. And most people that are on those diets seem to have lower incidence of, heart disease and that kind of stuff. But there's also, when you have a test done, they also test for HDL. Let's just see the HDL right here. And basically what the HDL does is HDL finds extra, if there's extra LDL in your system, it tugboats the LDL to your liver, and then your liver, gets rid of the LDL, through your system. So that's basically what it means for your LDL. Oversimplified, obviously. But anyway, so that's my 3 things that you can do to prevent heart disease, to prevent surgeries, bypass surgery, open heart surgery. If you like this video, please subscribe. And please comment below if you have ideas on, or things that helped you or helped a relative. Please comment below, because being a heart disease survivor, my goal is to try and figure this out for my children, and for, if I have grandchildren, for them, for relatives, for everyone. I think we can figure this out. I don't think doctors and researchers are going to figure this out, because they're not as vested as you and I are. It's our lives that are on the line. We have to figure this out, where we can eat normally and still be healthy and still improve our situation, not cause it to go down. And if you're trying to prevent this from ever happening, we want to find ways where you can prevent this from happening. So comment below, subscribe if you like this content. I'll be making one of these about every week. There's always new research, always new studies, always new diets. So it's an ever-changing landscape. So I will, when I find new things to make videos about, I will make videos and try to keep the community up to date on what's new and what people can try, and see what works for everybody. So thank you for watching. See you next time.